my office is full of nosy people. The office had many older workers, and I noticed the way they talked. They loved the news, the gossip, and the little details of the day. I took 2 days off after a medical procedure. I needed the time to heal, but I didn't want the whole office to know why I was gone. I wanted my space and rest. I wanted to come back without a big talk. When I returned, I saw the same pattern. I saw the manager who shared the business of everyone. I saw the coworker who asked one question, then asked 10 more. I knew the questions were coming and the room was small. I knew my answer could become the next office story. A coworker named Susan called me before work. She asked if I was sick or if I was just feeling down. I liked Susan, and I talked with her sometimes, but I still felt the question was too much. I wanted to say, I'm okay, but I don't want to talk about it. I worried that I'd sound rude. I learned that you can be kind and still keep the line. You can say no and protect your own life. I knew my health was mine. I knew my choice was mine. I knew I didn't need to explain every part of my life to the office. The proof was clear because my manager even warned me before. I remember the day she leaned over my desk and said, "People here just care, Larry. You should tell them what happened." My name is Larry, and I worked in a small office in Columbus, Ohio. I was part of a team at a local service organization, and I thought I knew the people around me. I was wrong. It was a normal morning when I started to see my office in a new way. I'm Larry, and I worked as an office support specialist for 6 years. I was the person who helped the team, fix small issues, and kept the daily work moving. I want you to know I'm not here to attack anyone. I'm here because I have my notes, my memories, and my side of the story. I kept calm. I watched the details. I learned that you can smile, you can help people, and you can still keep your own life private. I began this job with a lot of hope. I liked the work, and I liked the people around me. I felt proud when I helped the team finish tasks. I felt proud when my coworkers thanked me for being ready. I felt proud when I earned my paycheck and knew I was doing my part. The job felt simple, and the office felt like a small family. I thought I could trust the people there, and I thought they could trust me. I still remember the small things. I had my badge on my desk every day. I had a shared drive where I saved the files for the team. I had a training video that showed new workers how the office worked. Those little things made me feel like I belonged. I remember my coworker Susan, who was friendly and always wanted to talk. I liked Susan, and I thought she liked me too. At that time, I didn't see the bigger picture. I just came in, did my work, and tried to be kind. I answered questions, I helped the team, and I gave the office my best effort. I thought the office was a safe place. I thought the people cared about me. I thought I could share a little, and I could keep the rest for myself. But I started to learn that the line between care and curiosity can become very small. I started to notice the way the office talked about the personal lives of others. I kept my smile, but I kept my eyes open too. After the truth started to feel clear, I began to notice small cracks in my office. I wasn't looking for a fight, and I wasn't trying to judge you or anyone. I just watched what happened around me. I was Larry, and I knew my own limits. I knew my health was my choice, and I knew you could have your own space too. I came back to work, and I felt my stomach turn a little. I saw the same desks, the same walls, and the same people, but I saw the little signs. I thought I could trust the team, but I learned I had to watch the small things. I wanted to stay kind, and I wanted you to know I still cared about my coworkers. My first red flag was a simple talk with Susan. I walked in, and I said, "Good morning, I'm back today. I'm feeling better." I thought that was enough and that the talk was done. Then Susan smiled and said, "So, what was wrong? Was it serious? Were you just tired?" I felt my face get warm. I didn't want to be rude, but I knew my answer could open a big door. I said, "I'm okay. I just needed time off." Susan looked surprised and said, "You can tell me, you know. We're friends." I knew she meant well, but I also knew the office loved details. The small question felt like the start of many questions. I saw how the words moved through the room and how the manager shared stories. I saw how the same people asked about the lives of others. I started to think, if I tell my story, will you keep my story safe? I didn't know. I only knew my private life was mine. I knew I had to be careful, and I knew you can be kind while you keep a line. The next day, I noticed the same pattern in the office. I saw the little looks, the quiet talks, and the questions waiting for me. I knew the room had the power to make my small choice feel big. I told myself I could stay calm, do my job, and protect my own space. You can care for people, but you can also keep the parts of the story that belong to you. I stayed polite. It was only a few days later when I saw the next sign. I came in, I did my work, and I tried to keep my head down. I told myself I could trust the team, but I watched the small moves. I saw a report on my desk, and I knew the number in my file wasn't the number I saved. I checked my notes, I checked my copy, and I knew my eyes were right. The number was changed. I asked the team about the change because I wanted the truth. I said I didn't want to fight, I just wanted the work to be clean. A coworker looked at me and said she didn't change it. I felt the room get quiet. I knew someone moved the number, but I didn't know who. The manager said we should forget it and move on. I felt my trust break because I knew my work could be blamed. Have you ever sat in a room where you knew something was wrong, but you saw everyone act like nothing happened? Have you ever watched a small lie grow bigger while you stayed quiet? You may know the feeling when you see people smile, but you know the truth is hidden. Have you ever asked yourself if you should speak up or just keep the peace at work? I kept watching and I saw the same pattern again. I saw a complaint from a client that was missing from the system. I knew my team had received it, and I knew my notes showed it. The complaint was buried, and I felt the same fear again. Then I saw my coworker get blamed for the missing report. I knew she didn't deserve that. I wanted to help, but I also knew I needed to understand the whole story. I looked at the files, I checked the dates, and I found more small changes. You can imagine how I felt. I knew the office wasn't the safe place I thought it was. I knew I had to watch the details. You can work hard, you can be kind, and you can still see things that feel wrong. I knew my own notes mattered, and I knew the truth was there. You can see how I felt when my simple job became a place where I watched every move. I stayed calm, and you can feel why I kept my eyes open. I waited. I walked in that Monday, and I felt my stomach drop. I sat at my desk, and I opened my email like always. I saw one message that wasn't for me. I read the subject line, and my hands got cold. I saw my manager's name, and I saw words I shouldn't see. I knew someone sent me the wrong file, and I felt my heart race as I clicked it anyway. I told myself I could just look, then close it fast. I saw numbers, dates, and my own name inside, so I knew this wasn't a normal email. I knew I found something big. I felt my throat go dry, and I kept scrolling down the page. I saw a shared folder link at the bottom of the email. I clicked it, and I couldn't believe my eyes. The folder wasn't locked. I saw files from years back, and I saw a spreadsheet still open on the screen. I saw my coworker's name on the last edit. I knew she left it open by mistake. I sat there, and I stared at the screen for a long time. The office got quiet around me. I heard the copy machine hum in the back corner, and the clock tick on the wall by the door. I felt the cold air from the vent above my desk. I saw dust on my keyboard in the morning light. I heard my chair creak when I leaned back slow. I saw my coffee cup still full and going cold. I heard footsteps in the hallway, and I froze at my desk. I saw the blinds cast lines across the old carpet floor. I heard Susan's laugh from 2 desks away. I felt my chest tight, and I didn't move at all. I heard the printer start, and I jumped in my seat. I saw my own reflection in the dark computer screen. I felt sweat on my palms, and I wiped them on my jeans. I heard the phone ring once, then stop, while I sat still and stared at that spreadsheet on my screen. I didn't know it yet, but that spreadsheet was about to end 10 years of quiet lies in my small office. After the truth sits in front of me, I feel my whole body freeze. I'm at my desk, and I keep looking at the same line again. I read the line 5 times because I cannot believe what I see. My cold hands hold the mouse, and my heart is racing fast. I know you can feel that kind of fear, and your mind go quiet when the truth appears. I look at the screen, and I ask myself, is this really happening to me? I don't move or speak. I just sit there with my eyes on the file. I feel the weight of knowing and my own name on that page. I see the dates, notes, and small details that connect the story. My stomach feels tight and my hands feel weak. I know the truth isn't a guess anymore. I know the truth is sitting right in front of me. I think about my next move, my job, and my coworkers. I think about you and what you'd do in my place. Would you close the file? Would you save it? Would you walk away and act like you saw nothing? I ask myself these things while the office keeps moving around me. The printer is still making noise and the phones are still ringing. The lights are still bright above my desk. The world feels normal, but my world feels different. I feel like I'm holding a secret that's too heavy for my hands. I know I cannot forget what I see because my memory will keep this moment forever. The first hour after I find it feels strange. I save the file and take a screenshot because I need to know I have proof. I send a copy to my own email because I need a safe place. I print 1 page because I need something real in my hands. I look at the paper and I feel the same cold fear again. I know you may think I'm overreacting, but I'm not. I'm careful and calm. I'm trying to protect my work and my name. I keep the paper in my bag and the email in my account. I keep my face normal when people walk by. I hear Susan ask if I'm okay, and I smile and say I'm fine. I know I'm not ready to talk. I know my words matter. I know my next choice matters. I sit there with the truth, and I feel the weight of knowing. After the truth landed in my hands, I felt the room change around me. I was still Larry, but I knew I wasn't the same. I looked at the file, and I knew you'd feel the same fear if you saw what I saw. I'd the proof, the secret, and the choice, so I could walk away or hold on to the truth. I sat at my desk, and I tried to act normal. I opened my work files, I checked my notes, and I answered small questions. You know feeling when you smile, but your mind is somewhere else? I felt that. I knew my face had to stay calm and my voice had to stay steady. I knew my next step had to be smart. I looked around the office and I saw the people I worked with every day. I saw Susan talking, I saw my manager walking by, and I saw the same walls that felt safe before. But now I knew there was more behind the quiet moments. I knew the little changes weren't random. I knew my name was inside a story that I never wanted to join. I asked myself, what would you do if you were me? Would you save the file? Would you keep the secret? Would you tell someone right away? I kept asking myself these questions because I knew the answer could change my job, my life, and my future. The hardest part wasn't the file. The hardest part was the weight of knowing. I knew something that other people didn't know. I carried the truth while the office kept moving. I heard jokes, I heard phones ring, and I watched people laugh. You may think that knowing the truth feels powerful, but you can also feel alone. I felt like I was carrying a heavy bag that nobody else could see. I wanted to tell someone, but I didn't know who I could trust. I wanted to protect my coworkers, but I also wanted to protect myself. I knew my choices and words mattered. I knew every move mattered. I went home that night and looked at my bag on the chair. I knew the paper inside was real. I knew the email was real. I knew the truth was real. I sat there and thought about my next day. I thought about you and the choice you'd make. Have you ever known something so big that you were afraid to whisper it to your own family? Have you ever held a truth that made the normal world feel different? I was there. I had the weight of knowing, and I knew I could never look at my office the same way again. After the truth sat in my hands, I knew I'd to make the next move. I went home and looked at the file, my notes, my proof, and my own fear again. I knew I could stay quiet, but I also knew I couldn't forget what I saw. I asked myself, Larry, what'll you do now? I felt the weight of the choice and knew you might feel the same if you were in my place. You may feel scared, you may feel lost, and you may wonder if you should speak. I didn't sleep well that night as I walked around my room and thought about the office. I thought about my coworkers, my job, and the truth I found. I knew I needed help because I couldn't carry the whole thing alone. So I called someone I trusted, my old friend Mark, who knew a little about work issues. I said, I found something, and I don't know what I should do. My voice was low, and my hands were shaking. I told him the story about the files, the changes, and the strange things I saw. I told him I wanted to do the right thing. Mark listened and didn't laugh. He didn't tell me to ignore it. He said, Larry, if the truth is in your hands, you've a choice. You can hide from it, or you can stand with it. That line hit me hard. I felt the shift inside me. I knew I wasn't just a quiet worker anymore. I was someone who saw something wrong. I was someone who had to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. I thought about you watching this story and asking, what would I do? I knew you might feel the fear I felt. I knew you might worry about the cost. I knew you might want to keep peace, but I also knew the truth mattered. I opened my notes one more time. I checked my facts, my memory, and my heart. I told myself, I won't let fear make my choice. The truth stayed in my hands. I knew I'd to move. I sat at my table, and I looked at my notes, proof and fear. I knew my next step could change my path, and I told myself I was still Larry. I was still the same worker. I was still the person who wanted the right thing. I opened my laptop, backed up the files, and saved the records on a USB drive. I put my USB drive in a safe place because I knew my proof mattered. I made a copy of my notes, checked the dates, names, and details. I wanted the truth to stay safe. I walked to my room, and I opened the locked cabinet where I kept my private papers. I placed my folder inside and printed a new folder that I put in my car trunk. I knew my hands were shaking, but I kept going. I knew you can feel scared when you make a hard choice. I knew you can feel alone when you stand for what's right. Have you ever done something small just to prove to yourself you could still do the right thing today too? I called a lawyer because I needed help. I told the lawyer my side, what I saw, and about the files and changes. I listened, and I wrote down the advice. I knew my voice mattered, so I contacted a journalist. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew my story needed care. I kept my words simple and my facts clear. I knew you'd ask yourself what you'd do in my place. I asked myself the same thing. I also started the report. I wrote my name and the facts. I wrote the timeline. I didn't write with anger. I wrote with care. I wrote because I knew the truth was bigger than my fear. I felt a strange energy inside me. I felt nervous, but I also felt strong because I knew my small actions were the first steps. I knew the road ahead wasn't easy, but I wasn't silent anymore. I was Larry, and I was finally choosing my own voice. After the truth reached me, I sat at my desk and I knew you could feel the fear. I looked at my notes, and I knew my next choice was huge. I told you that I was ready, but I knew I needed care. You know how I felt when the office looked normal, but my world felt different. I stayed at my desk and I kept my eyes open. I called my old friend Mark and I told him I found more than a simple mistake. I said I had my proof, but I also had a new worry. You may think I had all the answers, but I didn't. I knew my first plan wasn't enough. The next morning I saw the problem grow. I opened my email and I saw the lawyer letter from the company. I felt my hands shake because the letter was a warning. It said I shouldn't share files because the matter was private. I read the words and I knew the pressure was real. I asked myself what you'd do if you were me. I felt scared, but I kept my calm. I knew I had my notes, copies, and own memory, and that you'd want to protect yourself too. I knew I couldn't rush. I knew I needed a better path. Then I got a message from a former worker named Dana. She said she saw my name in the old files too. I read her message twice and I knew I wasn't alone. You can imagine how I felt. I had the fear of the letter, but I also had a new person who understood my side. I talked with Dana, and I asked my questions. I listened, and I learned more about the hidden issues. I knew my choice was getting bigger. I knew you might feel the same if you were in my place. You might feel the fear, and you might feel the hope at the same time. I went home that night, and I looked at my folder. I knew the road ahead was hard. I knew the truth was bigger than my office. I knew I had to stay smart. I told myself, I can do this and keep my voice. I can choose the right next step. I knew this was the moment when I stopped hiding and started moving. I saw the small signs, and I prepared for the next day. That morning, I knew my fear was still there, but I knew my choice was clear. I sat at my table with my notes, my files, and my plan. I looked at the truth, and I told myself I couldn't hide anymore. I knew you'd ask what I'd do. I knew you'd feel the same heavy feeling if you saw what I saw. I opened my laptop, started the report, and wrote my name at the top. I wrote the dates, the facts, and the small details. I didn't write with anger, but with care. I wanted the truth to be clear because I knew the truth mattered. I checked my words again and again. I knew the report had to show what happened, not just how I felt. I saved my files, and I kept my copies safe. I looked at my notes, and I felt my hands shake. I knew the next step was real now. I wasn't just thinking about speaking or hoping for change. I was speaking and making my move. I remember sitting there and thinking about you. What would you do? Would you stay quiet or look away? Or would you stand when the truth was right in front of you? I knew my answer and that I had to do what I believed was right. I sent the documents, pressed the button, and felt the moment hit me. The room around me was quiet, but my mind was loud. I felt scared, but I also felt free. I knew the fear was big, but my reason was bigger because you can feel afraid and still move forward. I didn't want to destroy the office. I didn't want to hurt people. I didn't want the drama. I just wanted the truth to have a place. I wanted my voice, my work, my name, and my effort to matter and mean something. I sat back after I finished, and I took a deep breath. I knew the old Larry was gone. I was still me, but I was stronger. I knew my silence had ended and my choice was made. I went on record because I believed the truth was worth it. I was finally ready to stand with what I knew. After the truth reached the outside world, I felt my life change in one fast moment. I was Larry, and I was sitting in a Zoom call with investigators. I had my notes, my files, and my memories, but I knew my story was no longer only mine. I knew you could feel the fear if you were in my place. I looked at the screen and I saw the faces of people asking about the office. I answered every question and told them what I saw and saved. I told them why I kept my records. I didn't want drama. I wanted the facts. I knew my words and my name mattered. I knew you'd ask yourself what you'd do if you found the same things. After that call, I received a notice for a deposition. I walked into the room with my folder in my hand. I felt my heart beat fast, but I stayed calm. I looked at the table, the chairs, and the people waiting for my answers. I knew my old life at the office was behind me, but the pressure was still there. I sat down and I raised my hand. I promised. I heard the questions and gave my answers. I explained my days, my notes, and my concerns. I knew you might think I was scared, and you'd be right. I was scared but ready, and I told them about the emails and files. I told them about the changes and the talks with my coworkers. I told them how my private life became a topic in the office. I told them how my health questions became gossip. I told them how I felt when my own space wasn't respected. The hardest part was seeing my old workplace again, through the records. I saw my name and the dates. I saw the small choices that built the bigger problem. I knew my job and fear had changed me. When I left the office, I wasn't the same Larry. I was more careful with my trust. I was more clear with my limits. I knew my voice had value. I knew you can be kind and still protect yourself. I knew you can care about people and still say no. I still think about that Zoom call, that room, and that day. I remember my hands shaking and my quiet voice. I remember the truth sitting in front of me. I know you understand that feeling when your normal world suddenly looks different. I know you understand why I had to face the consequences of what happened. I knew the exposure was coming, and I felt my whole body shake. I sat at home, and I watched my phone light up with calls. I saw the company's name on the screen, and I felt my stomach drop. I knew they didn't know what I knew. I knew the storm was close, but they still smiled at their desks. You can imagine how strange that felt for me. I pictured Susan at her desk, laughing like always. I pictured my manager walking around the office, calm and proud. I knew the truth was already moving, but they'd no clue. I felt a mix of fear and power in my chest. I knew my choice couldn't be undone now. I knew the emails were sent, and I knew the reporter had my files. I checked my phone every hour because I couldn't stop watching. I saw a message from the journalist that said the story was almost ready. I felt my hands go cold again. I knew you'd feel that same fear if you were me. I knew the office still felt normal to them, but not to me. I went to work that day, and I did my job like always. I typed my reports, I answered my emails, and I smiled at my coworkers. I knew my smile was hiding a secret. I knew Susan had no idea what I carried inside me. I heard her ask about my weekend, and I just said it was fine. I didn't tell her the truth because I couldn't yet. I watched my manager walk by with her coffee, so calm and sure. I knew she thought she was safe, but she wasn't. I felt the weight of knowing something so big. I knew this was the calm before everything broke apart. I looked at the clock and I counted the hours. I knew the story would go public soon, and I knew nothing would be the same. I sat in my chair and I felt my heart pound fast. I knew the people around me still trusted their small lies. I knew they still believed their secrets were safe with me. I felt sad for a second, then I felt strong again. I knew the truth had to come out no matter how hard it felt. I packed my bag that night and I looked at the office one more time. I knew tomorrow the whole company would learn what I already knew. I whispered to myself, "This is it." I turned off the lights and I walked out the door. I knew everything was about to change forever. It was the morning when the outside world finally saw what I'd found. I sat in my car and I watched my phone shake with messages. I knew my report was moving, and I knew you'd soon see the same truth I saw. I was like, this is really happening. The reporter called me and said, "Larry, the story is ready." I checked the files and I'm publishing the evidence today. I felt my hands get cold, but I knew I had to stay calm. I knew you might feel fear if you were me. I knew you might ask, what would I do now? Then the investigator entered the picture. I joined a meeting and I placed my notes on the table. The investigator looked at my documents and said, "These records show a clear pattern." I looked at my old manager and I saw her face change. The smile was gone. The room went dead silent as I watched the executive read the document that was entered as evidence. I saw her eyes move across the pages and her face change from calm to shock. I knew my proof was real. I knew you could feel the pressure in that moment. I felt my heart race but stayed in my seat because I couldn't believe how fast everything changed. The office changed fast after that day. I walked in and I saw the people who once asked me questions now avoid my eyes. I heard the phones ring and I heard the quiet talks in the halls. I knew my name was now part of the story. I knew you'd understand the strange feeling of seeing the truth become public. My manager called me and said, "Larry, we need to talk about the report." I listened and I asked, why was my information ignored before? She'd no simple answer. I knew the old excuses were gone. The company started the review, and the pressure hit everyone. I saw my coworkers worry about the files, the dates, and the choices they made. I knew my small action created a big wave. I knew you might feel nervous if you stood where I stood. I still had fear and doubts about my job and my future. But I knew the truth was out. I knew you could see why I had to speak. I walked away from that office knowing the quiet days were over. I was Larry, and I knew my world had changed forever. The next Monday, I woke up and I knew my world was about to move fast. I held my phone and I saw the first message. I knew my story was out and you could feel the fear I felt. I checked my email and I saw the news link. My hands shook, but I stayed calm and told myself I did my part. I knew the truth was no longer only my secret. You can imagine my shock when I saw the headline. I saw my name, my office, and my report on the screen. I walked into work and I felt the change. I saw the quiet faces around me and my manager looked down at the floor. I heard the phones ring more than normal. I knew the company had a big problem and you'd feel the same strange feeling. I was there and I watched the storm begin. I saw my coworkers whisper and my boss avoid my eyes, and I knew the old days were gone. By Wednesday, I saw the next wave hit. The company stock dropped and everyone started to panic while I watched the news updates on my phone. I knew my report caused the questions, and you might ask what I felt. I felt fear, stress, pressure, and my chest get tight. I knew my job and my future could change. I still told myself I did what I had to do. You can feel scared and still stand strong. The executives started meetings as I saw the leaders walk fast through the halls. I saw my manager trying to explain the mess. I heard the same words again and again. We're looking into the matter. I knew the company wanted control. I knew my evidence was now part of the public story. I knew you could see how big the moment became. I watched the people who ignored my concerns finally face the questions. Then Friday came, and the biggest change happened. I opened my phone, and I saw the executive resigned. I sat there, took a slow breath, and knew my small choice created a huge wave. I knew you might think I felt happy, but I felt many things. I felt tired, shocked, and nervous. I thought about my old office and my coworkers. I thought about you watching my story and asking what you'd do. I knew the exposure changed everything. I knew my name was now connected to the truth. I knew the consequences were real. I lost my normal work life, my old trust, and my simple days. But I still knew why I spoke. I knew my voice mattered. I knew you could protect yourself and still care about people. I knew the truth had a cost, and I was ready to face my next day. After the pressure hit, I felt the whole world move fast around me. I was Larry, and I knew my quiet days were gone. I saw my phone light up, and I knew my name was now part of the talk. You can imagine how I felt. I had my notes, my files, and my fear. I knew you might feel the same if you were me. I sat down, and I told myself I had to stay calm. I kept my voice low, and I kept my words short. The company called me the next morning. I looked at the number on my screen, knew the call wasn't normal, and answered, "Hello, this is Larry." The lawyer said the company wanted to talk about a settlement offer. I listened, and I didn't rush. I knew my choices mattered, and you'd ask what I did next. I just said, "I need time to review this." I didn't yell or fight, and I kept my calm when the lawyer talked about an NDA. I heard the words, and I felt the weight of the moment. I knew my story, my files, and my name were now in the middle of a big problem. You can feel that kind of pressure and your heart beat fast, and I felt it too. I looked at my notes, and I remembered why I saved them. I knew I had to be careful because the next call was harder. My manager called me, and I saw the fear in her voice. I listened to her and stayed polite when she said, "Larry, we should find a way forward." I answered, "I understand, but I need to think." I knew the old office wasn't the same. I knew my work life had changed, and you might wonder if I felt angry. I didn't. I felt tired and stressed. I felt the cost of speaking up. The days after that were strange. I walked through the office, and I felt the eyes around me. I saw the quiet talks, the closed doors, and the long looks. I knew the consequences were real. I knew my normal routine was gone. You can lose the simple things and the easy talks. You can lose the feeling that you belong. I went home that night, opened my laptop, and read the lawyer's message again. I typed a short reply and wrote, "I received this. I'll review it." I saved my notes, looked at the screen, and knew I needed a break. I took one last look at the laptop, and I closed the laptop. It was the morning when I opened my new office window and felt the fresh air. I looked at my clean desk, my hot coffee, and my new life. I smiled because I knew I made it and was finally free from the old fear. You know feeling when you fight hard and you finally see the light? I felt it and knew you could feel it too. I walked into my new job, and I felt proud. I had my own space, tasks, and voice, and I didn't need to hide my story anymore. I didn't need to worry about the office gossip or the people who wanted my private life. I could just be me, work, grow, and enjoy the day. The biggest change was the truth. The company review was done, the facts were clear, and the people who ignored my concerns had to answer. I saw the final report and knew that my notes, proof, and choices mattered. You may wonder how I felt when the truth won. I felt proud and calm, like I could breathe again. I remember the courtroom day. I walked in with my folder, my records, and my confidence. I saw the same kind of room that once made me feel small. But this time, I was ready, told my story, and answered the questions. I kept my voice strong. I knew you'd understand that moment and how scary it's to stand alone. The judge looked at the evidence, and the truth was clear. I heard the final words, and I felt my eyes get wet. I won, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted respect. I wanted the truth to matter and my name to stay clean. Now I wake up, make my coffee, and enjoy my quiet mornings. I look at my desk, my window, and my future. I know you can lose a lot when you stand, but you can also find yourself. I found my strength, peace, and new path, although I still think about the old office, stress, and days. But I don't live there anymore. I live in the present. I have my new job, my new goals, and my new life. I know you can face hard times and feel scared. I know you can move forward. My story is simple. I saw and protected the truth. I stood with the truth, and the truth gave me my freedom. When the truth finally brought change, I saw my old office in a new light. I got a message from my former coworker, Dana, and I felt my heart jump. She wrote, "I want to thank you, Larry. You helped me find my voice." I was afraid, but I saw you stand, and I knew I could speak too. I read her words again and again, and I felt my eyes get wet because I knew my choice mattered. You know feeling when you think you're alone, then someone tells you that you helped them? I felt that, and I knew you could understand why my small step became a big change. I remembered the old days at the office. I came in, I did my work, and I smiled. My job looked normal. The desks, the phones, the coffee, and the daily talks all looked simple. I thought I was just another worker and could trust the team. I thought my effort was enough, but the truth showed me the hidden side of the office. I saw the problems, and I knew my voice could help you and others. Now I had people who thanked me. I had messages from workers who said, "I saw what you did." I had people who told me, "You gave me hope." I knew the fear was worth it. I knew the stress was worth it. I knew the long nights were worth it. You may wonder how I felt. I felt proud, calm, and free, like I could finally breathe. I walked into my new life with my head high. I had my own space, goals, and peace, and I didn't need to hide my story anymore. I didn't need to fear the gossip or the questions. You know how good it feels when the truth wins, and I felt that every day. I knew my past was hard, but I also knew my future was bright. The best part was the thank you messages. The people who once felt quiet now had a voice. I saw the change I helped create, and I was still Larry, the same person who cared about people. But I was stronger and wiser. I knew you can face fear, you can stand tall, and you can make a difference. My story wasn't about revenge. My story was about truth, respect, and the new life I built. It was the day I finally saw the truth bring peace. I sat with my coffee and I smiled because I knew my choice mattered. I knew you could feel the same fear I felt. I knew you could ask yourself, would I speak or would I hide? I want you to know I wasn't perfect, but I was brave. I was still Larry, and I had my doubts, my worries, and my quiet moments. But I knew my truth was worth it. The review ended and the facts stood strong. The files, the dates, and the notes showed the real story. I saw my name cleared, and I saw the people who doubted me understand why I spoke. I watched the office change, and I knew you'd understand that feeling. You know the feeling when you carry a secret, and then the truth finally sets you free. I got messages from people who said my choice helped them. I read my messages, and I felt my heart grow. I knew my voice wasn't only for me. I knew my voice could help you if you were sitting with your own secret today. I know you may feel scared. I know you may feel alone. I know you may think the cost is too high. But I want you to remember my story. I lost my old comfort, but I found my strength. I lost my easy days, but I found my respect. I lost my fear of speaking, and I found my own power. The truth didn't make my life perfect, but the truth made my life honest. The truth gave me the chance to see the bigger picture. The truth showed me the real value of my voice. If you're hiding something wrong at work, I want you to know you aren't weak. I want you to know you can take a careful step. I want you to protect yourself, your name, and your future. I want you to believe your voice has value. I learned that the truth can hurt, but the truth can heal too. I learned that my courage started small, and my courage grew when I chose the right path. Now I wake up and I feel proud. I look at my life and I know my fear wasn't bigger than my purpose. I know you can find your own courage too. I know you can stand for the truth even when the room feels cold. I know my story is proof that the truth was worth it. If you've ever kept a secret at work, share your story below because I read every comment from you.